I asked Dr. Sabe McGuire if I could be the opening act for tonight. She wanted to create a very warm environment. My name is Jonathan Galashaw. I'm the Director of Technology for the Dartmouth Public Schools. I'd like to begin by introducing the people on stage. Dr. Sabe McGuire, Superintendent of Schools, first person. Thank you for that. To her left, Mr. James Kiley, Director of Business Manager, but Director of okay, hold on one second. Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Operation. I have cue cards here, so that's good. On this side, we have the Director of Curriculum for Teacher and Learning, secondary level, Dr. Ross Tebow. Thank you, Ross. Great accomplishment. Next to Ross, we have Catherine Paveo, sorry, tongue-tied there, Director of Teacher and Learning for elementary level. Katie. Next to her is Lori Denisio, Director of Student Services. And next to her, Ms. Kim Redlund, Assistant Director of Student Services. And as I mentioned, I'm Jonathan Galashaw, Director of Technology. I'll be sitting over there. I'd also like to recognize some of the administrative team that came out tonight, too. Potter is represented in the back there. Go Potter, thank you. Mr. Porter, Mr. McHenry. We have Cushman over here. Dr. Dale, good to see you. Out here we have DeMello. Thank you, Liz Correa. Thank you for coming. On this side, we have the high school in the back, Mr. Ryan Shea, Mr. Mike Martin, our Director of Athletics, Andrew Christouli. Also, right down here, Rachel. It's good to have you. Oh, Xavier, yeah, I forgot her last name. From the high school, yes, thank you. But thank you all for coming out. As we said, we have did I miss someone? Oh, Audra Thomas. How could I Dr. Audra Thomas. Sorry, I didn't see you there. From Quinn, thank you. Thank you for recognizing that. So thank you all for coming out. We have a beautiful presentation for you. It shouldn't take too long, maybe about 3 hours, and we'll go through all the slides very slowly. But it's a great way to showcase the school, how proud we are of Dartmouth, how much of a wonderful place it is, and we'll talk about all the different areas we're doing, and we'll have an opportunity for you to ask questions at the end there. So please enjoy, sit back, and relax, and we have a beautiful presentation for you. Welcome.
That's right. You're not supposed to oversell. Remember, undersell, over-deliver. So truly, thank you all for coming out. I know it's a rainy evening, and there's so much going on in everybody's lives. And we also know that we're being live streamed, so we're excited about that. And no doubt we'll be crashing DCTV's website because there'll be so many people, viewers out there watching. But seriously, we are really happy to have you out here this evening. So why are we here? And we want to start with that. And the reason that we're talking about the why this evening in launching this discussion is because it really does represent the work that we began together this 2023-24 school year. The first day that I had the opportunity to meet with the entire Dartmouth staff and faculty, we started off by talking about our why. And the reason that we did that is because it's really important for us to continually come back to the why that we engage in this work. And it's really fun to engage in thinking about your why in late August when school's about to start and everything's shiny and new, and it's a lot more challenging when March rolls around. And so one of the things that we're doing a lot of talking about is kind of going back and connecting with your why, because we believe that by being grounded in the why that we do this work, it allows you to be able to get through some of the challenges that we face every school year. And so tonight, why for this evening? We have a threefold reason for this evening. First, personally and professionally, it provides me the opportunity as your I'm calling myself your semi-new superintendent. As you know, I was appointed, I think, last April, and I want you to know that right away I began to investigate and sort of research and understand the community before I even entered. So that, I want you to know, part of tonight is about you understanding my why. And then next, our why is to provide you who are truly our critical stakeholder group. We need you to understand the work that we're doing, and we hope that at the end of this evening, you'll have some real concrete understanding of the why and some of, the wonderful things going on here in Dartmouth and some of the challenges that we're facing. And then finally, I want to talk about the why, and as I just said, the why is about informing you and having the opportunity to engage with all of you in what is actually happening in the school district. So we're going to spend time doing that this evening. And I just want to say that, again, you are our most critical stakeholder groups outside of the folks that exist every day within the school, who are our students, our staff, and our faculty, and our leadership. And so I also want to acknowledge that there are those of you who are here in this room right now who have heard much of this presentation before, and that's kind of a good thing. That's the way I look at it. I think if we don't sound like broken records, that means we're shifting gears, and really we want to stay on message, and we want to be clear that our goal is to have a very clear path moving forward. And so we're going to move on and talk about what has been really the phases of the entry plan that I've been engaged in since I was fortunate enough to be appointed as your school superintendent again back, almost a year ago. So it's really been a multi-phase process, and it has included these 4 steps. And you can see that it's about community building, listening and learning, analyzing data, and sharing findings, and then from there, once we have shared our findings, what are our next steps? And that's about action planning, and that will come through strategic planning, which we'll talk about this evening. But I do want you to hear directly from our central office leadership teams. We know that every day you're in the schools and you're engaging and interacting with our staff, with our school leadership, with our teachers, and that's important. And we also want you to know who we are. And so Mr. Galashaw introduced you to our central office leadership team, and we don't want to just be names on forms that you get or things that you see in Parents Square and in your backpack on a weekly basis, but know that as your leadership team, we are here to support your students, certainly our staff, and you as well. And so we want you to know that this phase, the listening and learning phase, this is part of the entry planning process that we are currently engaged in. And when I think about way back in the fall when we started to talk about how we were going to engage our stakeholder groups, we really had planned on meeting with this particular group much earlier. But I'm pleased in hindsight that this is happening now, because I feel like as a team, we've really come together and we're able to have these conversations with you in a much more authentic way. And I feel like I have a much better understanding of the school district and this community. And so we're going to talk next about my set of core values. As I said to you, that I think it's important that you know who I am. And again, I know that some folks out here have heard me talk about this, but I want you to know that the core values that I hold are grounded in the ethical considerations of an organization. And this is a framework that is at the heart of the work that I believe can serve as guidance for our work in the Dartmouth Public Schools. You can see here from this framework that there are 5 ethical considerations, and at the center is the ethic of community. And what I mean by the ethic of community is that I'm stressing the importance of the relationship between the community and our schools, and it should be one of active collaboration, of shared decision-making, And it's also about the sort of mutual exploration of the balance of stakeholder needs, expertise, expectations, but importantly, we're working toward proceeding from, again, that core ethical value and focus tonight on how the community can in turn support the work of our schools. So this is, I hope, a good transition to talk about what the Dartmouth Public Schools and the community has committed to its students. And you can see right here at the heart of it is there's a mission. There's a mission statement, and we want that mission to be something that the community values and can see that it is a guiding sort of, we're going to talk about North Star, and we're going to talk about the portrait of a learner as a North Star, and the mission really does drive this. And it's pretty succinctly stated here, which is the mission of the Dartmouth Public Schools is to provide a quality education for our students. You know, there are other things that are embedded within that mission that go on and sort of expound on it, but what we want you to look at and understand is that the tenets that exist within that mission, we as educators and you as caregivers and family members should be able to ask us how the tenets in this mission exist in the work that's happening in our schools. And so we're going to talk about, really in this sort of order, about what the student experience is in the Dartmouth Public Schools. You're going to hear us talk about teaching and learning. You'll hear us talk about student services. You'll hear us talk about the many wonderful extracurricular activities that are happening across the Dartmouth Public Schools and the Dartmouth community, what some of the activities are that students have the opportunity to engage in. We're going to talk about the budget, and we're also going to have conversation about technology. And so we're going to now transition into what I think is the most, I would say, the center of the work that we do, and everything else is sort of around this, just like the community is at the center of the ethics of our organization. We're going to talk about teaching and learning, and I'm going to ask that our directors of teaching and learning, Mrs. Paveo, I'm still practicing her name after all this time. I have to go through it. And then also our director, so Mrs. Paveo is the Director of Teaching and Learning Pre-K to 5, as many of you probably know. And then our newly minted Dr. T-Bolt, who is the Director of Teaching and Learning 6 to 12.
Thank you, Dr. Saber-McGuire. So we part of our charge here tonight is to just introduce ourselves. As Dr. Saber-McGuire talked about, we want everyone to know who we are and what we do. And so in the Office of Teaching and Learning, it's Mrs. Paveo and myself, as was shared. Also Mrs. Karen Scorpio, who is our administrative assistant in our office, but we handle a variety of different issues all related to teaching and learning, curriculum, instruction, and assessment. And so one of the major charges is to work in support of some of the outstanding teacher teams that occur throughout the district. Ms. Paveo, if you want to touch on that.
So at the elementary level, we have 4 core academic teacher teams in each of the core academic areas. And we really have focused on working on a curriculum review cycle. And so what we mean by that is that all of our curriculum materials need to go through a cyclical process of being reviewed. And I'm going to try and cut that feedback a little bit, and looked at through a critical eye to make sure that we are providing research-based, high-quality instructional materials and putting those in the hands of our educators so that they can be using those materials with our students. We look at student performance data, we look at what we're doing well as what we need to bolster our instruction around. And we really have a dedicated group of professionals who go at that work, sometimes during the school day, sometimes after the school day. And right now, one of the things they are certainly looking at with a critical eye is some of our literacy instruction materials, and they are vetting some new literacy materials, which is very exciting for me at the elementary level.
So at the secondary level, it's set up similarly, but a little bit different. We break out into content area teams. So at the middle school, and those content area teams are supported by either a lead teacher or instructional coach at the middle school level, and also the associate principals at each of those two buildings are really responsible for supporting the work that goes on with respect to curriculum instruction and assessment in their buildings. At the middle school level, one of the current focuses is really on looking at science. We have some changes to the science MCAS coming up, really looking at providing our students opportunities to use and engage in simulations, and so that's really going to be a profound change in the way students are assessed around their mastery of science content. At the high school level, we have a pilot going on in math as well as in English, a pre-AP pilot in English. And so there's always a great deal of curriculum work going on in the building at any given time, but certainly those are some of the highlights. In addition to our work around curriculum teams, we also are responsible for helping support the educator evaluation process, providing feedback and support to our educators to make sure that we're, in fact, making good on that mission of providing a quality education for all learners and making sure that all truly means all.
So in addition to that, we oversee the professional development for our staff throughout the district and make sure that we are providing high quality, timely, targeted professional development around the topics that are necessary for our teachers to stay current in their practice and their pedagogy, but also in the content that they're teaching. So, as we roll out new initiatives, as we roll out new programming, we have to make sure that we are training our teachers so that they can go forward confidently with the skills that they need to be able to provide that instruction to our students.
In our district here in Dartmouth, we also have a population of students, multilingual learner students who are fluent in another language and also learning English simultaneously. And so supporting that population of students is an important part of our Office of Teaching and Learning as well.
And we also oversee the entitlement grants. There's a link there if this is something that you're interested more in hearing about. But this is really riveting stuff about federal funding. But one of the things I would just continue to encourage our community is this year we have free lunch for all students, which is amazing and fantastic. But we still need families to fill out their free and reduced lunch forms because a lot of our federal funding is tied to our numbers around that information. So anyone who's really that invested in federal funding, I'm happy to sit and chat more with you about it, but there is a live link also in this. And I won't take too much more of your time talking about that.
So as Dr. Saber-Maguire spoke about, the student experience is very important to us, and one aspect of that experience in particular related to teaching and learning is around class size. And school enrollment and class size go hand in hand, and the district is very much committed to ensuring that we maintain reasonable and equitable class sizes across the district, K through 12. And so you see up on the screen our current average class sizes.
And there may be variation around that, looking at some of the enrollments and the really shift in enrollments in different buildings, but the average class size in our K-5 classrooms is 21 students.
And at the secondary level, grades 6 through 8, it's 18.9. And then at the high school level, again, it becomes a little bit more difficult to kind of pinpoint because it varies from class to class and from department to department, but I can tell you that the class size, the average class size at the high school, it ranges from anywhere from 18 and a half to about 22. So it's in that ballpark, very similar to the numbers you see K through 8.
And so when you, no, you're fine.
Okay, sorry.
When we go forward, one of the big initiatives that we've taken on is working towards creating our portrait of a learner. Mr. T was going to give you a little bit of an overview about that.
So the portrait of a learner is going to serve as our North Star. We're about to engage, and we're going to ask for your help in strategic planning across the district. And really, the mission of that strategic plan is to help us go from poster to practice with respect to our portrait of a learner. Portrait of a Learner is really, we're going on 2 years in the making now. You might recall getting a survey from us last year at some point. We went to great lengths to make sure that the Portrait of a Learner was truly a community portrait of a learner and not something that was developed behind closed doors or with just input from a few people. So we surveyed families and caregivers, community members. We sent the survey out to all elected town officials. We surveyed our students at the high school level, faculty and staff from across the entire district. And in addition to that survey, we also engaged our faculty and staff in the visioning process for that and developing prototypes, and from that synthesized all of that information with Envision Learning Partners, which is a consulting group that does this work across our country. So we're very confident that the Portrait of a Learner that we're developing is going to be a quality portrait of a learner, and that it's going to reflect the values and the skills and competencies that were identified by our stakeholder groups.
And I will just say, certainly from my role, but also as a parent of younger students, I very much appreciate the district's commitment to not just a portrait of a graduate, which is what you might hear in a lot of districts. They talk about a portrait of a graduate. And we were, from the very beginning with our team, pretty adamant that we wanted to create a portrait of a learner and talk about what that means from our littlest learners, our 3-year-olds in preschool, all the way through our graduates. So what you see in front of you is, I will say, a simplistic visual. So one of the things also that we're very proud of is that we have art students from the high school who are working on creating a visual to go along with our portrait. But our 5 competencies, the 5 C's, as we're kind of affectionately calling them, around critical thinking and problem solving, communication, continuous learning, contributing citizen, and collaboration. Those are the big themes that came out of the data that we collected from those stakeholder groups around what is important to you. And I think one of the things that I'm most proud of is that we're not just talking about kids who can solve algebraic equations. Yes, that's very important, but we're also talking about kids who can critically think and kids who can be collaborators and work collaboratively and communicate, right? And so there's skills that people may refer to as soft skills, but what we know are really as life skills embedded in these. And so within these 5 competencies, there are also learning outcomes. There are learning outcomes that we identify at the pre-K to 2 level, 3 to 5, 6 to 8, and then 9 to 12. And they build upon each other so that we know when we're talking about our portrait of a graduate of Dartmouth High, we can scale that back and go, where do we need them to be by the time they reach grade 2 so that they can meet these competencies by the time they leave our school and are hopefully college and career ready.
And so in order to accomplish that, it requires that we truly support all learners, and a major part of that responsibility falls to our Student Services Department. And so we will kick it off with Laurie Dionisio.
Hi, everybody. So Student Services, who are we? So this long list of very specialized professionals, this is what encompasses our student services. And all of these people play a very important role in helping our students with disabilities develop the skills that they need to access the curriculum. And that's really the lens that we come from as student services within a school system. We need to help our students with whatever skills that they're lacking or maybe behind in, to how can we support them to get them to access the curriculum. So that includes occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy, school psychologist, nursing. We have a very robust department, and they are present in all our schools, Cushman to the high school.
And so now knowing who we are, what do we do? So we, as well as other parts of our department, but our major part is special education, and we oversee special education programming for all students aged 3 to 22, so that involves the transition from EI into preschool. It involves programming inside and outside of the district for students K through 12, and then programming for students after high school who qualify for our Atlas program ages 18 to 22.
So that's a lot of words, but what does that look like in action? It might look like 2 friends having fun in speech therapy, playing a game together. It might look like a small group phonics instruction for students who need some extra support with reading. And it a lot of times in this building especially, it looks like unified sports. This happens to be the unified basketball team that we have at Dartmouth High School.
And then if you look at the bottom row, we have students who engage with their learning through sensory input materials as well as technology. We have, the middle picture is our Atlas program on community volunteer outings. And then we also have an example of a distraction-free, flexible seating classroom that is actually at the middle school for students who need to just take that break from the larger classroom setting.
So if you're thinking that really sounds awesome, I want to be more involved, I'm going to put in a plug for our CPAC, which is the Special Education Parent Advisory Council. We generally meet every other month. Our next meeting is in May at Potter. So that's an opportunity for parents with students with disabilities to come together. We generally have a speaker or some type of topic that we talk about just to learn more and to grow. And we are in the process of doing our yearly survey. So the survey is for parents of students who are on IEPs or 504 plans, and it's just another opportunity for you to have your voice heard. The link to that survey will be sent out in this week's electronic backpack. So please click on it and submit your answers.
Thank you. So that really addresses the bulk of teaching and learning related areas, but another part of the student experience we know are the extracurricular activities and co-curricular activities, clubs and activities that our students engage in. And we know that a lot of times our students come home and probably this is what they talk about as being the best part of the day, and that's awesome. That's how it should be. To give you kind of an idea in terms of the offerings we have in Dartmouth Public Schools, we have 56 athletic programs. That's varsity as well as sub-varsity, and it's about 1,016 students. Now, obviously, that's more students than we have in the high school, so that means we have multiple students who play multiple sports. But we do have about 2/3, about 65%, give or take, of our student population is involved in athletics in some way. So, 2/3 of them play at least one sport. In terms of clubs and activities, this includes both the high school and the middle school. 2 years ago now, our middle school expanded and increased the offerings for after-school programming for our middle school students. And so between the middle and the high school, we have about 64 unique clubs and activities, and in total, that services about 739 students. In addition to that, I think they need no introduction if you were here this weekend at the indoor percussion or the color guard. Our music program is phenomenal. We have about 9 different music programs all told, and again, upwards of just shy of 300 students who participate in our music program. So you can see, between athletics, clubs and activities, and our music program, we're servicing well over 2,000 students in about 130 different programs. So we're quite proud of that. Our students are quite proud of that. It should be a source of pride for the community and really enriches the experience that our students are receiving as part of their education.
So this is another one of those very exciting slides full of numbers, which actually does very much excite me. So what you see on this slide is our enrollment in MCAS data from 2023. And it's a little bit difficult to see, but what this chart is showing is Dartmouth in comparison to like districts. And what I mean by like districts are districts that are similar to us in demographics. So we're talking about similar enrollment, similar subgroup numbers. And if you were to zoom in on that, you would see that Dartmouth is very much holding its own when we talk about our schools of comparison. And I think as a town person and resident, you should be able to look at this and think that know that you're getting a really good bang for your buck for your education. Your children are getting a great experience, and their student achievement is showing us that they are performing very well compared to their like peers.
And of course, MCAS is only one measure, right? But there are many other ways that we measure student achievement, including providing advanced coursework and advanced opportunities for students, whether it's through advanced placement coursework at the high school or college dual enrollment, which we have. But we're very proud of our student achievement with respect to the advanced placement program. We've worked very hard over the last many years to expand access to AP to include all students, right? And really make good on that mission of providing a quality education for all and ensuring all means all. And so the Dartmouth High School this year was recognized as an AP, was awarded the AP Access Award. And what that means is that our enrollment in our advanced placement coursework is reflective of our enrollment as a school, the demographics of the school. So our students who may be experiencing economic disadvantage, for example, are enrolled in our AP coursework at the same rate as our non-economically disadvantaged students. And so again, we really take this as a source of pride because it shows the commitment to really hitting home on our mission and making sure all students have a quality educational experience. Of course, it's nice to provide students access, but we also want them to be successful when they're there. And that's a testimony to the outstanding teachers that we have. And you can see that we were on the AP Honor Roll, the Silver Award, which means that we're having a significant number of our students earn a qualifying score, which means that they take the exam, they get a 3, 4, or 5, and that makes them eligible, depending on the college they're going to receive college credit at no cost. So we're tremendously proud of our AP program. We think it makes us very competitive in the region for sure. So, of course, this is one of those, we'd be remiss, we talked about a lot of many different issues. School safety and security is a primary issue, and we know that, for our families and caregivers, it's probably at top of mind. It's at top of mind for us as well. None of what we just talked about would matter if we didn't have safe and secure schools. So the district reviewed and updated our comprehensive emergency management plan just 2 years ago now. I think it's every 5 years or so that we review that document and revise it as necessary. And we don't do that in isolation. We do that in collaboration with members of our emergency response agencies in town, our school resource officers, which every one of our schools has coverage from a school resource officer from the Dartmouth Police Department, which we appreciate. And then Mr. Galasher, I think you want to talk about.
Is this on? Thank you, please. I wanted to mention in regards to security cameras, we are very fortunate in this town to have a 10 gig fiber optic network linking all municipal buildings and schools. Thank you to the hard work of Mr. Chase and school officials that maintain that fiber optic network. Because of that, we have our security cameras linked to the police department so that the police are able to watch the perimeters of the buildings and watch the vestibules and learn how to do that. So if there's ever need, it's nice to have that kind of control if ever a situation were to arise, as well as the ability to tap into the intercom system and the phone system. And we do that through the fiber optic network.
In addition, we also, each of our buildings, our building administrators are excellent at coordinating with our police and running different safety drills. Of course, we do our traditional fire drills, which have been around since all of us were in school, but we've also done different safety scenarios, and when we run those drills, we get an opportunity to practice our ALICE principles, which kind of govern that, and review that with students several times throughout the year. But also, again, the police are usually on hand to help coordinate that and to provide feedback, and we're constantly working that so that we can, be as safe as possible. All of that has to do with our physical safety, but we also prioritize and emphasize the importance of fostering a safe and supportive school environment beyond just the physical piece. Ensuring our students' mental health is supported, ensuring safe and supportive and welcoming environments that are inclusive and help foster a sense of belonging for all students is a key component of that. And we're constantly doing those things too. For example, the picture you see up here is the Playbook Initiative, which is a partnership between the Boston Celtics, the Mass Association of School Superintendents, Project 351. Dartmouth High School was one of just 28 communities selected from across the Commonwealth. More than 100 applied to be part of that. But what that does is it focuses on areas of discrimination, hate, and bias, and it empowers our middle school students to be upstanders in a safe and productive way. And the training is really led by high school students who have gone through and been trained. Trained to be trainers. And so that's just one example. You know, our schools also bring in experts from the Safe and Supportive School Network, which provides professional development and training to make sure that we're being culturally responsive and sustaining in our practices. And
All of our schools also have outreach social workers that students have access to if they need to. And in the middle school and the high school level, obviously they have the guidance department as well.
So, none of anything we've spoken about would be possible if it was not for the continued support financially of the town. And so, Mr. Kiley is going to take us through in more detail our budget.
Thank you, Dr. Tebow. So, let's take a look at the FY25 budget process here and how we've gotten to where we are. So, our starting point in the fiscal year 25 process was the town allocation of a 3% increase over our fiscal year 24 budget. So immediately we knew that that was going to be a problem. So what we did was we started the process earlier than ever with an initial presentation in December of our budget. Normally we present our first budget proposal in February. So some of the things that alerted us were the expiration of the federal ESSER funds, which were COVID relief funds, which expire this upcoming September, as well as increased costs in certain areas of the budget, such as transportation, labor, special education tuition, legal services, other cost factors that were beyond our control. So we knew immediately that we were not going to be able to meet the 3% without consideration of significant cuts or some other form of funding. So on December 11th, when we presented to the school committee, we presented a 5.3% budget increase. That included already cuts to several positions. At that time, the school committee agreed to utilize non-recurring school choice funds to support certain requests that we had made in relation to curriculum materials and technology replacement, so hardware replacement. So we were thankful for that, but that didn't solve our problem. And following that presentation, discussion began with the town administration and town board members to consider the possibility of requesting a tax override. And on January 8th, we had a joint meeting with the Select Board and Finance Committee in which we discussed that process. At that time, we brought a 6% budget to the table, which reflected no cuts at all. So previously, we had cuts built in that got us to a 5.3% budget. We then changed that to no cuts, which was consistent with the town departmental requests, which were not going to include any cuts. So during that, that night, it was determined that we would utilize non-recurring school choice program reserves to bridge the budget gap rather than pursue an override. One of the considerations for that was that the timeline of an override would have been extremely difficult to push through. And in addition, you know, what we felt was that using one-time revenues that were accrued because of ESSER funding, that was COVID funding, were a possible consideration that could alleviate the need for the override in the short term. but it's tapping into your savings account. It's not a long-term solution. So it's a temporary solution to a long-term problem. So that brings us to next Monday night. So on Monday, we will present a proposed 3% budget increase. That will accomplish what we need to do to meet the town's allotted 3% budget. And in order to do that, we'll be making a significant choice of utilizing school choice reserves as well as budget cuts. So if you'd like to learn more about that, Monday night we'll have a presentation. On Tuesday morning, our budget, which is about 100 pages of detail, will be posted on our website. Following that, 2 weeks later, on March 25th, we'll have a public hearing at the school committee meeting in which you can come, learn more, ask questions, and in the meantime, if anybody has any questions, certainly I'm available to answer them. So that sort of is the groundwork of where we are, how we got here today. This is how the money is spent. So the big green piece of the pie is on instruction, as it should be, right? As Dr. Saber-Maguire said, teaching and learning is the most critical part of our operation. That includes salaries of teachers, principals, counselors, mental health support, educational support professionals, substitutes, all other classroom staff, as well as instructional technology, professional development, special education services, instructional materials, texts and library books, and that makes up 75% of our budget. The next biggest piece there is the 12% other services budget. It's purple up in the top left. So that includes transportation services. It includes our health offices, our nursing services, athletics, music, and student activities. All those things that Dr. Thibault highlighted, all of the funding for those is in that 12%. Maintenance and utilities of our facilities make up 7% of our budget. That is over there in yellow on the left. Out-of-district tuitions at the top, the sort of orangey color, makes up 4% of our budget. And then administration in blue on the left makes up 2% of our budget. So, again, I'd encourage people to be involved in the budget process. I think we have a temporary measure in place to solve the fiscal year 25 budget, but there is much more discussion coming for fiscal year 26, and it's going to be critical that we have support of the community to make sure that we can continue to do all the great things that my colleagues described earlier in this presentation. But that's not all of our issues that we need to tackle. We have aging facilities. It's probably not a surprise to anyone who is involved in the schools here. So our facilities are average 64 years old. Our newest building, the one you're in, is 23 years old. I've got to say that I'm extremely encouraged that I was included and the school department was included as part of a very important long-term capital planning process that the town is undertaking. That process created a strategic plan for replacement of town infrastructure, including 4 of our schools. So the window that long-term capital plan contemplates covers all 4 of our schools, so not this school and not the Cushman School, because eventually the Cushman School would be phased out of service. It's 100 years old. And this school parts of this school would also be addressed during that long-term capital plan. The other projects that the town has to tackle are significant. So we understand and we appreciate that we're a part of the process, but we're not the only considerations. We're going to push for the school department projects, the schools to be renovated or replaced, but we are working together with other departments in the town to tackle things like sewer and water, the Peyton Aaron Bridge, other factors that we understand are important to the town's folks. So all of that is great, but in the meantime, that's going to take decades to complete. And in the meantime, we have a 5-year capital improvement plan that we annually revise, and it takes a look at shorter term, typically less costly projects that we cannot ignore in order to continue the effective use of these buildings in the short term. Now, there are $125 million of requests on that 5-year capital plan. However, one of those is a new school building, and that's $100 million. So outside of that, there's still $25 million worth of requests over 5 years. That's going to be challenging for the community to fund, but those are things that we really do need to take a look at and tackle. Some are more urgent than others, but you'll note that on the slide, the current year requests, the most critical things on that plan are things like technology infrastructure, which our technology infrastructure is 10+ years old, in dire need of replacement, and is in some cases no longer supported by the vendors that we purchased from. Creates safety and security issues for us, and we really need to address that. Also, that is supported partially by federal grant funding, so we want to accomplish that. Vehicle replacement, we have vehicles from 2013 that are rotting, and we need to replace those. Asbestos flooring replacement. A lot of our buildings have asbestos in them. We have remediated much of the asbestos, and the asbestos that remains is either encapsulated or in condition that it's not friable. However, you can't let that be forever, because eventually it deteriorates and gets to the point where you have to remove it in emergency situations. We don't want to be in that position, obviously. And over the years, I'm in my 13th year here. Since my first year here, we have gradually replaced things like tile floors that contain asbestos. We still have a ways to go. Several more years. This request helps support that. A vehicle for the 18 to 22 transition program that Ms. Redlund mentioned. That is a critical component of that program. We do not have a vehicle. We're paying a contractor for transportation. It's not cost effective, and we need to do that. I won't go into all of the rest of the items on the list, but I will say that there are other items on the list that are critical that we need to address over the next 5 years. Last year, there was not a great deal of support because of some budgetary constraints that in terms of our projects, and we hope to gain some more support this year, and we'll certainly advocate that this year and in the upcoming years so that we can maintain these buildings for your children. So we appreciate that. And now I'll introduce the voice of Dartmouth.
Oh, thank you. How you doing?
Mr. Galashaw, to discuss
Yes.
some technology.
Thank you, Mr. Kiley. I will do that voice for you before we go, so if you're looking forward to that. You guys are great sports. You've been sitting there the whole time, and I want you to know I'm the second to last slide, so that's awesome. You guys, it's PowerPoints are tough to live through. But before I get on to my slide, if I may digress for a moment and talk about technology. Technology, we're immersed in technology, and your children, our children, are completely immersed in technology. It's something that I've been accused of having a sense of humor, and part of that is to hide the pain that I feel, because I worry about technology all the time. As you see from every news story, there's barbarians at the gates everywhere. And my priority is our district. I love what I do, and I love protecting and using the technology. And your children, our children, use the technology to the greatest ability they can. And it's going to be part of their lives even more so. And coming soon to a world near you is artificial intelligence. So that's another new challenge we're going to do. I don't want to digress, but technology is really divided up into two pieces: operational technology and instructional technology. Operational is the part I worry about in the background with the switches and the routers and the bandwidth and all that stuff, the Chromebooks and such. And it's an important thing to keep up with. Instructional is really the heart of technology, and that's where your children, our children, are using it, how to apply it, how to use the tools, how to express themselves. You saw in some of the pictures we had, and that's a great part of technology. So just that was a quick blurb on technology, but now to my slide. The real focus coming up that I want to talk about in the future and now and in the future is really communication when it comes to technology. We have some great tools, and it's going to be what's going to open up or maintain that connection. You know the first one, Aspen, that's our student information system. That's the schedules and the courses and how to graduate and report cards and progress reports. It's a great communication tool. It's also where we keep your emergency information, so it's very important we maintain that through the letter of the law and just to protect it in general. Parent Square is a program we adopted this year. It's a great communication tool, and it's going to get better because you're going to be able to do a lot of things like permission slips and forms and pay for field trips and stuff. We're going to get into that. So we're just starting out this year using Parent Square. And the best part about it is you can control it. It'll be on your phone, on an app, or on a computer, and you can control when you get the messages. That's the vehicle that I use to make those snow calls, and I'll just try to leave them limited. We only had one this year, correct? Do we have one? I was very disappointed. I was looking for 7. It would have been a better use of my voice. And finally, the website. You know the website, a little dated. We've been working in the background trying to build another one, and it's been a labor of love, but it's still a labor, and we're trying to get that. That's the place you go to get any kind of forms or documentation or handbooks or read, contracts, the budget, and other things. And that's really the focus on communication. So you'll be hearing a lot about these things, and thank you for your attention. Dr. Saber-McGuire.
Thank you. And so we're going to wrap up this part of our presentation, but we want to bring it back to our why. And why are we here? And this is truly about listening and learning. And this evening is meant to do that very thing. We also want you to know that this isn't a one and done, that we intend to create more opportunities to meet with families and caregivers on an ongoing basis so that we have some consistency and that you have an opportunity to share your thoughts and give us your feedback. But we also wanted to let you know that for us, student voice is an important factor. And this year, we've engaged in a number of interactions with our students. Dr. Thibault talked about Project 351. That's a wonderful opportunity to engage directly with a large group of middle school students and our high school students. So that has been an incredible experience. And again, Dr. Thibault has led that work. And at the same time, we've had some educators here at the high school and at the middle school who are critical to supporting that work in its entirety and in the way that it happens, because it does involve some logistical aspects of we have students, middle school students coming to the high school. If you want to say anything about that, Dr. Thibault, because I think that's one of the most powerful examples of the work that we're doing with students.
Absolutely. So it was myself. It was also Senora Chamberlain, who is a Spanish teacher here at Dartmouth High School and the advisor to our multicultural club. She was the lead educator on it, but Ms. Xavier, as the associate principal, worked with just so folks know, it included 2 workshops where 30 middle school students came from Dartmouth Middle School. They got on a bus, they came up to the high school. We provided them with a tour. Again, it's not adults giving the tour. The kids want to hear from other kids, right? And so Ms. Xavier, leading our mentoring group, connected about 10 to 15 of our mentors with those 30 middle school students. They got personalized tours of the building. They then engaged in workshops around anti-discrimination, anti-hate those kind of topics. And that was led by Jesse Walker, who is our lead trainer, and then Tia Rad, who is a junior, who is our deputy trainer. Those two students went with Mrs. Chamberlain and I up to Boston, to the Boston Celtics training facility for a full day, 9 to 5 workshop on a Saturday in December. And then those two students committed several hours on multiple days for virtual training from experts at the Boston Celtics and Project 351 provide around different issues related to hate and discrimination, whether it be race and ethnicity or disability status or culture or religion, orientation, a number of different areas where students might experience hate and discrimination. And so they were trained, and then they led that 90-minute workshop. And then on day 2, the same group of 30 middle school students came up. They had a second workshop that's scenario-based, and then they got to participate in a panel of our mentors talking about how to get plugged in at Dartmouth High School, what are the different opportunities that are available to them, and really just answering any questions that our middle school students had. So we really made it about addressing hate, discrimination, and bias, but we also used it as an opportunity to provide 30 middle school students with an intimate look at what it's like at Dartmouth High School. Again, the goal being thinking that that's a win-win because we're training our students to be upstanders when they go back to middle school and be leaders, but also to give them a preview of what's to come down the road because our goal is to retain all of our Dartmouth students right here in Dartmouth, and they have an excellent high school, and that provided them a great tour to see what that was like.
Great, thank you, Dr. Tebow. So in thinking about continuing the listening and learning, we wanted to share with you some of the opportunities that we have engaged in for engaging with student learners. And one of the opportunities is through what we're calling the Superintendent's Advisory Council, and that's here at the high school, and we're looking to expand that next year to the middle school. But what that is a group of students who are randomly selected to sit on this advisory council, and they meet with myself and with the principal here, Mr. Shea, and Ms. Xavier on a regular basis, on a monthly basis. And it gives us a chance to have those authentic conversations about the experiences that the students are having here at Dartmouth High School. And I want to say that the students, they really do bring a selfless kind of attitude to this work, because it is work, and they represent their classmates well. So it's never just about them. They really do find a way to talk about the experiences not only that they're having, but some of their classmates. In addition, we've done a climate and culture survey. We're going to be sharing that publicly with our school committee within the next couple of months, and that will be part of the report on findings. We have this year, Mr. Christofolia started Captain's Council and invited me to attend, and I have to say how impressed I am with the students here at Dartmouth High School and in Dartmouth in general. Wonderful opportunity to listen again to their perspectives and to listen to them really process their understanding of what it means to be a captain and what leadership really looks like in action. We also have several student focus groups. Just a couple of weeks ago, I met with a group of sophomores here at Dartmouth High School to talk about, of all things, the roof. And I was so incredibly impressed. They're doing a civics project that they are interested in what's happening here at Dartmouth High School with the roof because they notice things. The students notice that there are leaks. They notice that there needs to be work done here at the high school to improve their environment. A really thoughtful group of students. Student listening tour, we're constantly finding different ways to engage with the students here in Dartmouth, not just at the high school level, but at all levels. And again, thinking about the future, we want to hear from our family and caregivers. We want your voice. Next year, we'll be beginning a family and caregiver advisory council. And we're also going to, just this evening, actually, we'll be handing it off shortly to our partner, Teaching Learning Alliance. I'll talk about that in a minute. And we're going to ask that you complete a family and caregiver survey. I know everyone's favorite thing to do, a survey, but we want you to know how important it is to us that we hear your voice. We do surveys. We've done many surveys over the course of this school year with our staff, with our students, and this part of the puzzle is going to be critical in helping us to have put together a complete picture of the what is happening in the Dartmouth schools. So I'm just going to give you an opportunity for some questions, although we're kind of out of time, so.
Just to add about the
Yes,
survey.
please. Yes.
That survey is critical. We typically get a very good response from our families and caregivers, so we appreciate that. If you could fill it out, but if you could encourage your friends to also fill it out, the more of a response we get, the more valid the data is, and really will paint a better picture for us in terms of where we need to focus. It's going to be a major component of our strategic planning work. And so I think it's critically important, and I encourage you to do that. We're going to email that survey out to you tomorrow afternoon. It will also be posted on the website. It will also go out in the backpack on Friday. Only need you to fill it out once, but we're going to try and really saturate the communication so that we can get a good response back.
And so just back for a minute to questions, because we did put out a Google form and we asked folks if they were interested to submit questions, and we were hoping that we captured some of those questions in this presentation, but we recognize that some fell outside of what we discussed this evening. I know, Mr. Tebow, you were going to talk about the middle school and the backpacks.
Yes, so one of the questions we received was a question around why the middle school students were not allowed to carry backpacks with them throughout the day, and so we did speak with Dartmouth Middle School administrative team, and this is an issue and a concern that they're very much aware of, and in their assessment, students don't have many books because we have Chromebooks and we have other tools that they use, so it's not like 10 or 15 years ago where they're carrying 7 books throughout the day. So they feel that with multiple opportunities to go to their locker, that provides an opportunity to exchange what they need so students aren't carrying an excessive amount. It also helps them to maintain a safe, secure, orderly school because all the backpacks are in the lockers and not cluttered throughout. Also, as you can imagine, when you have 800 middle school students transitioning throughout the day, backpacks can become clumsy and bump in and make transition from one class to another challenging. And so those were some of the thoughtful reasons that Mr. Rossi did share. In addition to that, I just want to clarify, because I know part of the question was around our female students and can they carry personal bags, handbags and whatnot to include feminine products or other, personal need items that they might have, and the answer is yes, they absolutely can. So I just want to clarify that as well.
Thank you. Another question that we had was around whether or not we were going to add an additional kindergarten class at the Cushman, and the answer to that is at this time we are not, and the reason that we're not doing that is because we did engage with NESDEC in an enrollment projection process where they submitted a report to us, and what they found is that Dartmouth has the lowest birth rate in that particular year that they've had in how many years, Mr. Kiley?
It's the lowest birth rate ever for kindergarten students on record for next year, so.
Yeah, of course.
So you're not going to have the kindergarten, but when we projected the incoming rates for the current kindergarten class at Cushman, we were told it was the lowest it's ever been.
Broadcast.
That they're supposed to be the lowest that they've ever been. And we ended up with class sizes of 24 plus. But we have multiple preschools coming in that are bringing income, okay? So I'm just curious, because your predictions didn't go well this year, so I'm a little nervous. And sometime between May and probably mid-July, you started to realize that your predictions weren't gonna go the way that you anticipated. So where is the plan B for the current preschool that's going into Cushman, which I have no stake in? However, also, where is the plan for first graders coming from Cushman to DeMello? Because I've spoken, and this isn't my first time speaking, I've spoken to many. If they continue on this track, their love for learning is going to disappear. Never mind your MCAS data, your list will go down, and it will be part of a bigger conversation. So I'm a little nervous when we say, oh, the town has said we have no students. That's all I heard in May, and I didn't believe it then, and I don't believe it now. So I'm wondering what's gonna happen.
Do you want to talk a little bit?
Sure.
One of the things that I just want to mention to you, and I was going to get there, is that as far as the kindergarten class that will be leaving to go to the DeMello school, we will be looking at making some adjustments to address the class size going into first grade. So I want to share that information, and then Mr. Kiley's going to talk a little bit more about the difference between the projections that we made last year as opposed to what is happening and how we made those predictions for this year.
So the predictions for next year include, as Dr. Saber-Maguire mentioned, analysis by a third party, the New England School Development Council, who looks at birth rates, looks at transitions in the community, and determines what projected enrollment will be for next year. We did not engage with New England School Development Council previously. We recognize that there was an unexpected level of enrollment in this year's kindergarten class at the Cushman School. And that is unfortunate, we recognize that. So we took the step to engage with a professional organization that does this regularly, and we do believe that we have a good projection for next year. Obviously, we'll monitor that and proceed accordingly based on the enrollment. We're just starting that process now of enrolling for next year, so we'll keep an eye on it.
We just want to make sure you have a microphone. Okay. Of course.
Thank you. One of the things I'll say about kindergarten enrollment is when you're asking what you can do, is encourage people to enroll their students early. So historically, we get an onslaught of registrations between August 15th and September 1st.
There's no new hires looking for jobs in August.
So
It could have been fixed. And moving forward, we're saying that it's going to be looked at in September. You told me in September it was going to be looked at for first grade. The answer in March is, oh, we're still looking into it. What has changed from September for the first grade? So we're going to let kindergarten go. There was a mistake made with surveys. Fine. We didn't fill out our stuff, our census. Fine. But in the future, you told me in September that you were looking into that first grade position. Here we are in March, and you're using the same phrase. What has been done since September?
So I think I just addressed that just about a minute ago, saying that we are making an adjustment to the incoming first grade from we are making an adjustment, and yes, that will absolutely happen. Again, we have a school committee meeting on Monday night that we have to present our budget to our school committee, and that's going to include making an adjustment to that first grade class. It means we're going to look at exactly what those enrollment numbers, and if they stay the same, going into the Cushman, we are going to end up adding a teacher. That's correct, yes.
Can I just ask, there are parents, I'm a parent who has a child going into kindergarten in Cushman, and there are other parents obviously in that same scenario, and we see what's happened this year, and 25 kindergartners in one class is concerning. I give those teachers all the credit in the world because I sure wouldn't want to be one. So my ask is, can you please have more transparency regularly between now, because I hear your ask, Katie, and I think it's a good one, let's register early, but you've got parents waiting to register to see if their kid's gonna be 1 out of 25, and they won't. They'll go somewhere else and you will lose enrollment, and I'm giving you feedback that I've heard, and frankly, that I'm considering myself, and that's not what I'd like to do, but if there's more communication throughout, I think you'll get more engagement and more registration early, and then we all get what we need. So if that's possible, please consider it.
So I have a child at the Cushman in kindergarten, and my question to you is, have you ever been down to the Cushman?
I certainly have.
Have you seen a class of 25?
I certainly have.
Okay, so let me tell you some of the things that I observe. I go to the library every Wednesday. I see students that hit each other, push each other. I heard one student was punched in the private parts. One student was bitten. My son was punched in the stomach. Girls are inappropriately touched, their hair, their back, in between their legs. Some of the students have behavioral issues where they kick and hit the walls. I've heard stories at the Cushman of their children being slapped. I've also heard of children throwing desks where the children have to be evacuated from the classroom. And you cannot blame the teachers for that. You have 24 kindergartners in a class. We're very lucky to have good aides down there, one in particular, Mrs. Betancourt. The behavior is, I'm shocked by it, shocked. I personally would be willing to pull my student out and put him in private school. This is, most of the parents here, this is their second child. This is my first, and I'm utterly shocked about what goes on. And it's not the teacher's fault. It's not the principal's fault. There's just too many kids in the classroom. The thing now is, now that we're into March, the children know how to trigger each other. So they know how to set each other off. They know how to get under each other's skin. And I'm sitting there. I get home at the end of the day. I have to undo all these bad behaviors that my son is learning at school, right? And I'm thinking, how much education is he losing, right? How much time is my son's teacher, Mrs. Kim, how much time is Miss Kim spending just on discipline? Because she was supposed to have 18 children in the class, now she has 24. Me thinking about first grade, I'm like, maybe private school is what we need. And I went to the Gidley School from kindergarten to 5th. I went to Dartmouth Middle School. I went to Dartmouth High School. And for me to think maybe I should send my child to private school where he's probably in a safer environment, but will get more attention, get a better education, it falls on the administration because everyone up there, you guys set the class sizes, right? It's not Miss Cam. It's not the, yes? And these are all true stories of things that I've seen. I go in once a week, and it is the best thing. I recommend all parents go into the schools. See what your child is learning. See the behavior of your child. See the behavior of other children. Go in there and learn. And frankly, I'm shocked, utterly shocked every single day. And
So
what do you have to say about that, I would say?
So I would say that that's upsetting to hear that those are the experiences that you're sharing with us here. I have spent time.
And I can't imagine the things that I don't know.
So I would say that we are a very transparent school district. Any of the serious incidents that happen in any classroom in the Dartmouth Public Schools are incidents that we are aware of, that we respond to, that we are out supporting the schools and supporting the teachers, and we will continue to do that. As far as kindergarten enrollment is concerned, again, we believe that we have done our due diligence. You ask about action plan, and that I said something in the fall, and we did follow through with that. We immediately contacted DESDEC, and again, partnered with a third party that is very experienced at this work and does it all over the state. Now, if they made a mistake, that'll be something that we adjust to. You ask how you can help us, and I love that you asked that, so thank you so much. You can help us by supporting us as we come out and talk to you about our budget, because the biggest part of our budget is our educators. And we are committed to that. We are committed to that as the leadership that sits up here. We are out in our schools all of the time. It is very important to us, as you heard us talk about. Those aren't just words on a slide. We are committed to ensuring that our students are safe. And we are absolutely responding to the concerns. And I have to tell you, I love that the families here, the caregivers here are so committed to class size. That makes a big difference. You heard us talk about class size earlier. We were not happy about that class of 24. We did work with the school, with the administration, with the director, with our teachers to provide them additional support in the classrooms. We're going to continue to do that. And I have to say, again, that advocacy is critical to us as a school department. So I am thrilled that the folks in Dartmouth are so committed to maintaining class size, because we're going to be having lots of conversation about that. And so we're going to move on to other questions if we can. I think, did we have somebody who was waiting for a question? I want to make sure we give him a chance.
Real quick, Kyle Ross, father of 3 at Quinn School. I just want to thank you guys all for being here tonight. I think tonight is a real first step in the right direction. Obviously, sometimes parents feel that maybe they're not heard day to day, but opening up meetings like this with administration, friendly faces, and other staff down the road, I think it may, mend some of these issues, some of these frustrations parents are feeling. So I just want to thank you guys for coming out and setting this up tonight. Also, Mr. Kiley, where is the budget presentation next Monday?
Next Monday, it's right here at Dartmouth High School in the Media Center. So we'll have a nice budget presentation explaining where we are and where we've come from and how we got here. And then immediately the next morning online, we'll have our full budget packet, which is very detailed. Be happy to answer any questions that anyone might have. And then on March 25th, we'll have the public budget hearing, also here at the high school in the Library Media Center.
Awesome. I'm sorry. What time was that budget meeting at on Monday?
6 p.m.
So
thank you very much.
I just thank you, and thank you again for again your passion. We hear it. We understand your frustration. The last thing we want to hear from our residents is that you're looking at moving your students out of our school district. We want your students here in the Dartmouth Public Schools, in the community that they live in and where they belong. And so we're listening and we are working toward ensuring that, again, the kinds of situations that happened last year don't repeat themselves. So we have one other question that we wanted to address, and then we really want to turn it over to Dr. Gould back there, who's been sitting patiently. But we'll end with something that I think is interesting. So Mr. Kiley's going to talk a little bit about a question we had regarding Medicaid.
Yeah, it didn't exactly fit in our budget presentation, but we do actually bill Medicaid for students who qualify and services that are provided to students who qualify. And each year we go through a process, and it is a lot of work for our staff to document the work they do with students. Then administratively, we put together claims and we file them with Medicaid. The end result of that this past year was $250,000 to the town. So the question was, Are there discussions to have all of those funds given back to the school to support the budget? And then, why does the town keep those funds instead of those funds going back to the school? And I understand the question. So the funds are raised as a result of students, right? They're students' needs. Now, however, we, at this point, are not discussing with the town the return of those funds to the school department. Now, why aren't we doing that? In a time when, budget is an issue, it would make sense, right? So those funds cannot be allocated directly to the school department without appropriation at town meeting. So that $250,000 last year would have had to be appropriated directly by the town meeting to the school department in order to, in order for us to receive those funds. Most communities, those funds do not go directly to the school department. What does happen is that overall, we have a good working relationship with the town. We are more than 20% over the minimum net school spending. So there is no requirement for additional funds beyond like the 3% that we're receiving this year to come to the school department. That said, over time, the town has contributed more than that to the schools, and we're appreciative of that. That's gotten us to where we are today. But we're going to need more in the future. That will be part of the discussion. We actually receive funding from those Medicaid funds for one staff member in the schools. So we do get a little piece of that. And we're continuing, that process. That person helps administratively file the claims and do all the paperwork. So I just wanted to answer that. That's where we are
Great.
with that.
Thank you. And so we did go through the questions that were submitted. We did our best to answer those questions within the presentation. If there was a question that you asked or another question that you have, you can reach out directly to us. Again, we absolutely want to hear from you. And in that vein, I want to say that, again, we have Dr. Pam Gould here. Her name may sound familiar to some of you, but we are partnering with Teaching Learning Alliance. Dr. Gould was a former superintendent in Sandwich, has a long history of school leadership, and we're thrilled to be working with her through Teaching Learning Alliance. And what she is working with us to do is to lead us through the strategic planning process. And when I say strategic planning, again, your voices count. So please, if you could stay for just a little while longer and give her some feedback. She promises it's very relatively short and completely painless, but it gives you an opportunity to share some of even what you just shared with us. Because that's the kind of information that we need to consider as we enter into a strategic planning process. So if you could hang out just for a few minutes, if you can't, that's fine, but if you can, Dr. Gould's going to take over, and I just want to say thank you to everyone for being here. Thank you for those of you who are riveted to your televisions watching our meeting tonight, but this is important to us, and every single voice counts, and we do understand that we have work to do. So thank you for coming out this evening. And thank you to my team.